Hi everyone, and welcome to video 2 of our saxophone beginning series. In our first video, we talked about how to open the case and identify the different parts in the saxophone case. Now, if you haven't watched that video, pause this video right now, take a few minutes, watch video number 1, make sure you can answer all of the questions I ask and be able to name the different parts of the saxophone, and then come back to this video. If you've already watched video number 1, welcome. Let's move on to the next topic we're going to talk about, and that is how to attach the neck to the mouthpiece and how to put the reed on. So in order to talk about this, we're going to need a couple of things out of our case. We're going to need our saxophone neck. We're going to need the mouthpiece along with the cap and the ligature that comes with it. We're going to need our cork grease, and we're going to need a reed. So now that we have these 4 pieces on the table, the first thing I want you to do is take your reed out. Take your reed, either open up the plastic case or pull it out of the hard case that it's in, and I'd just like you to take that reed and put it in your mouth. Put about 3/4 of it in your mouth. You don't want to put the whole thing in your mouth, but put it in where the flat end of the reed is laying against your tongue. And we're going to leave our reed in our mouth while we put together the first part of this instrument. If you don't want to have the reed in your mouth the whole time, you can simply get a glass of water, drop the reed in the glass of water, and let it soak while we do the next part. But I'm going to put the reed in my mouth, and we're going to move on. We're going to start with the neck and the mouthpiece. And the first thing we're going to do is we are going to take off the cap of the mouthpiece and this gold, what we call a ligature. We're going to put those off to the side and come back to those in just a moment. So with your left hand, go ahead and pick up the neck and pick it up to where the whole of the mouthpiece is facing the ceiling. And we're going to squeeze ever so gently, firmly, but not too hard on the neck. Hold it like this. And we're going to put the mouthpiece on the cork end of the neck. Now to get this mouthpiece onto the cork, you simply line it up, wrap your hand around the mouthpiece, and then you're going to pull it onto the cork while wiggling it back and forth. Now you might notice, especially if you're playing a new saxophone or a sax that hasn't been touched in a while, it might be difficult for that mouthpiece to go on. That's no problem. Don't force it. You can wiggle it off, pull it off, and this is where our cork grease will come in. So go ahead and open up your cork grease. Remember, this cork grease is not chapstick, so don't put it on your lips. It won't hurt you, but it won't do anything for you either. Get a little bit of the cork grease sticking out of the tube, and all we're going to do is put a little bit of cork grease on the cork all the way around the neck. A little bit goes a long way, and you can always add more if you need to. I'll put the cap back on so it doesn't dry out. And the last thing I'm going to do, I'm going to rub that cork grease in with my fingers. Just get it in, make sure that it's evenly distributed over all of the cork. And now when I pick up that mouthpiece and I go to put it back on, I line it up. Now I'm going to shimmy it on here, just wiggle it on here. That goes on much, much easier. And I'm going to leave right now, I'm going to leave maybe a 1/2 inch or so of that cork sticking out, like so. Notice on the mouthpiece, the hole of the neck and the hole on the mouthpiece are on the same side. So you don't want to see your mouthpiece like this. That would be the incorrect way of doing it. Same as that. You want to make sure that that mouthpiece is on the same side as the hole on the neck. Congratulations, we're halfway there. Now that I have the mouthpiece connected to the neck correctly, the next thing I want to do is pull the reed out of the glass of water or out of your mouth. At this point, the reed should be very wet and easy to vibrate once we start making a sound. So holding the neck with your right hand, grip up a little bit higher towards the mouthpiece where your thumb rests on the mouthpiece, right below the hole. Take your reed and using the flat side of the reed, you want to put the flat side of the reed against the flat side of the mouthpiece, like this. Notice that the part of the reed that is not flat, which has this little cut in it and has two different colors, notice that is the part of the reed that's facing up. The flat part of the mouthpiece, flat part of the reed go together, and you want to line this reed up where the tip of the mouthpiece lines up with the tip of the reed. Do your best not to touch the tip of the reed with your finger or hit the tip of the reed on the side of the mouthpiece. These reeds are very, very fragile, they're delicate, and they can break very easily. And if you crack or rip the edge of your reed, then that reed is no longer good. You'll have to move to a new one. All reeds break at some point, and that's okay, that's natural, but we can do things and be very careful with them so they can live long lives. Once you have that reed placed, centered on the mouthpiece, tip even with the tip, now we're going to take our ligature, which is the gold part right here, and we're going to make sure that the screws are facing us. And you'll notice that the ligature, one side of the ligature is slightly larger than the other. You want to make sure that you lead with the large end first. Large end first over the mouthpiece and over the reed, being very careful not to hit the tip of the reed with the edge of the ligature. That can slice the reed in half, and then your reed is no longer good. If you use the small end of the ligature first, you'll notice it won't go down much further than this. You can force it because it's thin metal, but then you'll have a broken ligature. So make sure that you put the bigger end on first, like this. And then if it won't go down under the bottom part of the reed, you might have to loosen the screws a little bit more. Just don't loosen them all the way. You don't want them to come out completely. They can be a pain in the neck to get back in. So I'm going to get that ligature down here on the bottom part of the reed, avoiding the cutout right here of the reed. And then once that's in place, I'm going to tighten the bottom screw. I'm going to tighten the top screw just a little bit. Now I'm going to take a look at my reed. You may notice when you do this that after you get the ligature on, you might notice that your reed is sideways like this, or sideways like that, or maybe sitting too high, much higher than the tip of the mouthpiece, or much lower than the tip of the mouthpiece. That's okay, that's natural, it sometimes moves. Once you get that ligature somewhat into place before tightening it completely, you can just wiggle that reed back into place. Making sure the tip lines up with the tip. And once you're there, go ahead and tighten that ligature. You don't want to over tighten these screws. You just want to tighten them enough so they hold the reed in place. Don't allow it to move. But if you get a death grip on it, and if you really tighten them really tight, the reed won't vibrate and you won't be able to get a sound. So go ahead and check that. Make sure that your reed on the mouthpiece looks exactly like mine here.